In the dense traffic of the Perseus Arm, Captain Eli Ward maneuvered his scout ship, the Nebula Wing, through the bustling star lanes that connected the far reaches of the Milky Way. Humans, though relatively new to the interstellar community, were eager to make their mark, much to the chagrin of the older, more established species. On the bridge, Eli's second-in-command, Lieutenant Jonah Marks, adjusted the sensors. "Looks like we've got company, Captain. 2 blips, closing fast. Doesn't look like any human tech I know." Eli peered at the display, his brow furrowed. "Let's try to keep it friendly, Jonah. Open a comm channel." Jonah nodded, tapping commands into the console. "This is the human vessel Nebula Wing. We mean no harm. Please identify yourselves." The only response was a burst of static and a garbled voice. "Human vessel. Leave this sector immediately. You are not welcome here." From the shadows of the control room, their alien crew member, Threx, a slender being with reflective skin, spoke up. "That's a Cragorian warning. They don't take kindly to trespassers." Eli leaned back in his chair, exchanging a glance with Jonah. "Well, we're not exactly trespassing, are we? We're just passing through." Before Jonah could reply, the ship jolted violently, alarms blaring. "We're being targeted," he shouted, gripping the controls. Eli's hands flew over the dashboard, executing evasive maneuvers. "Hang on." He glanced at Threx. "Any ideas on how to cool them down?" Threx's eyes flickered. "Perhaps if I speak to them. My people have a tentative understanding with the Cragorians." Without waiting for Eli's approval, Threx activated the communication channel. "Cragorian commanders, this is Threx of the Yolari. We are on a peaceful mission and seek no conflict. Allow us passage, and I assure you we will interfere no further." There was a tense pause, the hum of the ship's strained engines filling the silence. Finally, a new voice crackled over the comm, gruff and somewhat calmer. "Yolari aboard a human ship? Very well, Threx. We will hold fire, but know this, human pests. Your kind is not welcome among the stars. Keep your curiosity to your own systems." As the line went dead, Eli let out a slow breath. "Well, that was close. Thanks, Threx. I guess it pays to have friends in high places." Jonah chuckled, easing the tension. "Or at least friends from different places." Threx merely nodded, his expression unreadable. Eli set their course back to a human-occupied system. "Let's head home, team. We've got some friends to make and a lot more to learn if we're going to survive out here among the stars." As the Nebula Wing sailed through the cosmic ocean, the stars seemed a little less hostile, a reminder of the vast and varied universe waiting to be understood. Chapter 2, Crash Landing. The control panel of the Nebula Wing blinked urgently, a red light pulsating with every warning beep. Eli gripped the joystick tightly as the ship shuddered under the stress of an emergency descent through the atmosphere of Xeraxis. "Systems failing, Captain," Jonah yelled over the roar of the engines. "We're losing altitude fast." Eli scanned the rapidly approaching surface, his jaw set. "Brace for impact. Threx, secure anything loose. Jonah, help me find a clearing." The small crew hustled to their tasks, the ship's alarms creating a cacophony of urgency. With a skilled but forceful maneuver, Eli managed to steer their vessel toward a vast expanse of alien forest, the trees looking like towering spires of glass and metal. The Nebula Wing hit the ground with a bone-jarring crunch, skidding across the strange terrain before coming to a halt. The crew was thrown forward, then back, held in place only by their harnesses. "Everyone okay?" Eli called out, unstrapping himself and checking for injuries. Jonah groaned, rubbing his shoulder. "I've had smoother landings, Captain." Threx, who remained surprisingly calm, nodded. "All limbs intact." With the immediate danger over, Eli opened the hatch, the air of Xeraxis rushing in, crisp and tinged with a metallic scent. "Let's assess the damage." The trio stepped out into an alien landscape under a sky that shimmered with colors no human eye was used to seeing. The ship was badly damaged, unlikely to fly without significant repairs. As they surveyed the wreckage, a rustling from the nearby foliage drew their attention. A figure stepped out, her appearance strikingly different from any species they had encountered. Her skin shimmered like Threx's, but with a hue of deep azure, and her eyes glowed softly under the alien sun. Eli stepped forward, his hand raised in peace. "Hello, we mean no harm. We crashed. I'm Eli, and these are my crew, Jonah and Threx." The alien woman studied them, her expression unreadable. "I am Lyra. You are far from human space, and not safe here." Jonah, always quick to engage, smiled. "We gathered as much. We could use some help." Lyra tilted her head, considering. "Come with me. You cannot stay out here. There are predators." Leading them through the dense, glittering forest, Lyra brought them to a village that seemed one with the environment, structures built around and within the natural formations of the landscape. As they walked, Eli was curious. "You speak our language quite well." Lyra's voice was melodic, almost singing as she replied. "I learned from those who traveled before you. My people are watchers, learners. We know of many species but choose to remain hidden." In the heart of the village, Lyra turned to them. "You will be safe here while we discuss your repairs. But trust is earned." Jonah nodded enthusiastically. "We understand, and we're grateful for the shelter." As the sun set on Zaraxis, casting long shadows over the village, Eli felt a mixture of awe and anxiety. They were stranded, yes, but in this unexpected misfortune, perhaps they had found a new ally. How they handled this opportunity could define the future of human interactions in this part of the galaxy. Chapter 3: Bonds of Survival. The village of Lyra's people was both a sanctuary and a curiosity to Eli and his crew. Constructed with materials that mirrored the surrounding flora, it blended seamlessly into the alien landscape. Lyra had arranged for them to stay in a dwelling near the edge of the village, where they could observe both the local life and the dense, mysterious forest beyond. Over the next few days, while the crew waited for their ship's assessment, Eli and Jonah took the opportunity to learn more about Lyra's technology and culture under her watchful guidance. "Your tech integrates with nature rather than imposes on it," Eli remarked during a tour of their central workshop, where tools and machines hummed quietly, powered by the planet's natural energy. Lyra nodded, picking up a device that resembled a scanner. "We believe technology should coexist with the environment. This helps us maintain balance." Jonah, always keen on mechanics, pointed at the device. "Could something like this help with our ship?" "Perhaps," Lyra said, considering. "It is designed for organic material, but I can modify it. Let's go take a look at your ship tomorrow. With Threx's help, we can assess the compatibility of our technology with yours." That night, under a sky lit by 3 moons, Eli found himself unable to sleep. He stepped outside, finding Lyra already there, gazing at the stars. "Can't sleep?" Eli asked. Lyra shook her head. "I often watch the stars to find clarity." Eli joined her, looking up. "Back on Earth, we do the same. There's something about the stars that makes you think. They remind us of our place in the universe," Lyra replied, her tone soft. Their conversation deepened, drifting to topics of philosophy and purpose. Eli sharing stories of Earth and its diverse cultures, Lyra listening intently, occasionally sharing her own people's lore. The following morning, equipped with Lyra's modified scanner, Eli, Jonah, and Lyra returned to the crash site. Threx joined them, eager to assist. "Let's see what we can do," Lyra said, activating the device. It emitted a soft glow, scanning the ship's hull. "Interesting. The damage is extensive, but not beyond repair. Some of your materials are similar to ours." Jonah watched over her shoulder. "Could we use some of your materials for the repairs?" "Yes, but it will require adaptation. Our materials react differently with your technology," Lyra explained, showing them data on the scanner. As they worked together, measuring, cutting, and fitting the alien materials onto the nebula wing, the bond between the human crew and Lyra strengthened. Their collaboration became a blend of learning and teaching, each day bringing new understanding and respect. By the end of the week, the ship began to resemble its former self, albeit with a patchwork of alien technology. Eli wiped his brow, stepping back to admire their work. Thanks to your help, Lyra, we might just make it out of here. Lyra smiled slightly. I have learned much from you as well. You and your crew are different from other humans I have heard of. Jonah, who had been tinkering with a piece of equipment, looked up. Guess we're not what you expected? Not exactly, Lyra admitted. You have shown great care for my home and respect for our ways. As the suns of Xeraxis set, casting a golden light over the repaired ship, the crew of the Nebula Wing and their alien host looked on, a sense of accomplishment shared among them. They had not only repaired a ship, they had begun to bridge a gap between two very different worlds. Chapter 4. The Revelation. As the repairs on the Nebula Wing neared completion, the crew enjoyed a brief period of calm. One evening, as they gathered in Lyra's village for a communal meal, the atmosphere was light, filled with the chatter of shared experiences and laughter. Yet, Eli noticed Lyra seemed distant, her usual vibrant demeanor shadowed by thought. Lyra, you seem quiet tonight. Everything okay? Eli asked, his voice low, not wanting to draw the attention of the others. Lyra looked up, her eyes reflecting the firelight. I have been meaning to share something with you all. It's about my people and why we hide. Jonah set down his utensil, his expression serious. We're listening. We are not just secluded by choice. Lyra began, her voice steady. Long ago, we were discovered by a warlord named Xaran. He saw our planet, not for its beauty or its peace, but for its resources. Since then, we've been under his watch, forced to mine for elements rare in the galaxy. Threx, who had been quietly observing, interjected, Xaran, the Galactic Warlord? We've heard of him. He's ruthless. Yes, Lyra nodded. That is why we hide. That is why we fear discovery, for it brings his wrath. Eli leaned forward, his mind racing. We've got to do something. We can't just leave you to this fate now that we know. Lyra smiled weakly, touched by his concern. I did not tell you to burden you, but your arrival, your ship, it might have already drawn attention. We must be cautious. Jonah, ever the strategist, tapped his chin thoughtfully. What if we could help? Maybe there's a way to use what we've repaired on the Nebula Wing to throw him off your scent. Or even better, Eli added, inspired by Jonah's fighting spirit. What if we take the fight to him, not with weapons but with wit? We could sabotage his operations. Give your people some breathing room. Lyra sighed, torn between hope and fear. It's dangerous. His fleet is strong, and he is always watching. We have Threx, Eli pointed out, and now we have your technology integrated into the ship. We're not as easy to spot and we're quicker. We've got a chance. Threx nodded, his voice firm. It's worth trying. We Yolari know a bit about stealth ourselves. Perhaps it's time to teach Xaran a lesson. Lyra considered their faces, each alight with determination. Finally, she nodded. Okay, let's plan this carefully. We'll need a solid strategy, one that avoids violence but cripples his oversight long enough for my people to fortify. Over the next few hours, they plotted. Eli outlined a plan to use the Nebula Wing as a decoy, drawing Xaran's forces away from Xeraxis, while Jonah and Threx would implement a series of tech-based disruptions to his surveillance and mining operations. We'll need precise timing, Jonah said, pulling up schematics of the systems they would target. Threx, can you hack into his network? With Lyra's help and the tech we've melded into your ship. Yes, I believe we can, Threx replied, his eyes glowing with anticipation. Lyra placed her hand on the map, her finger tracing the paths they would take. And I will coordinate from here, ensuring that once you draw him out, we mobilize on the ground to protect our lands. Their plan set, the group spent the rest of the night refining every detail, aware of the risks but driven by a newfound purpose. As dawn broke over Xeraxis, the crew of the Nebula Wing and their courageous host faced the day with resolve, ready to challenge a galactic tyrant for the sake of an oppressed civilization. Chapter 5. Assembling the team. With their plan against Xaran taking shape, Eli, Jonah, and Threx prepared for the most crucial part of their mission. Assembling a team capable of carrying out the delicate operations needed to disrupt the Warlord's surveillance network. Back on the Nebula Wing, Eli called a meeting with the crew and some of Lyra's most trusted tech specialists. The cabin buzzed with a tense energy as they all gathered around the hollow table, displaying the galaxy's sector maps and Exarun's known assets. "We're going to need the best," Eli stated, looking around at the gathered faces. "Not just good pilots and engineers, but hackers, stealth experts, and anyone who has a trick up their sleeve that might help." Jonah nodded, pulling up profiles on the screen. "I've already put out feelers to a few contacts from Earth and the Martian colonies. They're specialists in electronic warfare and stealth tech. They're discreet, and more importantly, they owe me a few favors." Threx added, "I will reach out to the Yulari underground, those who have resisted Exarun's forces in secret. They have operatives skilled in sabotage and espionage." Lyra introduced her own candidate, a tall, wiry Zorasian named Mika. "Mika has been essential in keeping our operations hidden from Exarun scouts. His knowledge of the local tech can be invaluable." Mika, with a nod, added, "I can manipulate our technology to create false signals and ghost entries. It might give us the confusion we need." Eli smiled. "Welcome aboard, Mika. We'll need all the confusion we can get." As the team members introduced themselves and discussed their skills, Jonah organized the operations logistics. "We'll split into 2 teams. One will handle the infiltration on Exarun's surveillance satellites. The other, which I'll lead, will work on installing the disruptions in his mining operations." Threx interjected, "I will join the satellite team. My understanding of both Yulari and human tech will bridge the gaps." Eli looked at Lyra. "And you?" Lyra's expression was determined. "I will coordinate from here, ensuring our actions on the ground sync with what you do in the skies. We must be precise." The team spent hours simulating various scenarios, running drills, and troubleshooting potential problems. As they worked, a camaraderie developed, not just among the humans but between them and their alien allies. The gravity of their task bound them together. As the meeting concluded, Eli pulled up a detailed timeline on the holotable. "We have 2 days to finalize preparations. Let's make sure we've got everything covered. Double-check all gear, run through the plans again, and make sure you're ready for any contingency." Jonah clapped his hands, his face serious but his eyes twinkling with the thrill of the challenge. "Let's show this warlord what happens when he underestimates humans and their friends." The team dispersed, moving to their respective tasks with efficiency and determination. As they worked, the base buzzed with a mix of nervous energy and hopeful anticipation. They were about to undertake a mission that could shift the power dynamics in this sector of the galaxy, and every single one of them was aware of the stakes at play. As night fell over Zoraxis, Eli stood outside, looking up at the stars, thinking about Earth, his crew, and the unlikely allies they had found. They were far from home, but right here in this fight, it felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. Chapter 6: The Great Sabotage. The night before the operation was a quiet one, filled with tense final checks and quiet contemplation. Eli met with his teams one last time in the main hall of Lyra's village. "All right, everyone, this is it," Eli began, his voice steady, his eyes moving across the faces of his diverse team. "We've got our assignments, we know the plan. Remember, the goal is to disrupt, not destroy. We want to cripple Exarun's ability to exploit this system, not start a war." Jonah, geared up and checking his tablet, nodded. "Team 1, you're with me. We'll take the stealth shuttle to the mining station. Remember, timing is everything. We sync our actions with Team 2 to ensure maximum effect." Threx, adjusting his communication headset, looked over to Mika and the rest of Team 2. "We'll be handling the satellite interference. Once we're in place, we'll cut off Exarun's communications long enough for Team 1 to do their part without tripping any alarms." Mika, who had been silently reviewing the coding algorithms one last time, gave a brief nod. "The programs are ready. They'll throw their systems into chaos." As the teams departed, Lyra approached Eli, her expression solemn. "Be careful, Eli. All of you. What you are doing tonight?" She paused, searching for the right words. "It is brave." Eli smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll be fine, Lyra. We've got a good plan and a great team. We'll see you soon. The two teams split up, heading to their respective targets. The journey was silent, each member lost in their own thoughts, mentally preparing for the tasks ahead. Jonah's team arrived at the mining station first. Dressed in dark, non-reflective suits, they moved through the shadows, using the low light to their advantage. "Okay, team, let's set up the jammers," Jonah whispered, directing the team to strategic points around the facility. "Remember, no unnecessary risks. In and out." Back in orbit, Threx's team maneuvered their small craft close to Xaren's main communication satellite. "Mika, you're up," Threx said as they floated in the cold silence of space. Mika, focused and calm, began the sequence to upload the disruptive software. "Uploading now. It should take a few minutes for the full effect to kick in." On the ground, Jonah watched his tablet closely, waiting for the signal from Threx. The moment the satellite communications flickered off, he gave the go-ahead. "Now, activate the jammers." The mining station plunged into darkness, alarms blaring mutedly without the main communications network. The workers, confused and temporarily blinded by the lack of digital guidance, were unable to prevent Jonah's team from completing their part of the sabotage. Up above, Threx monitored the chaos below through their feeds. "Satellite is blind and communications are down," he reported, satisfaction in his tone. Mika, done with his part, "Look." Lee was the last to arrive, ensuring all members were accounted for. As he saw each face return safe, his relief was palpable. "We did it," he announced to the group, who couldn't help but share small, tired smiles. Jonah clapped Eli on the back. "We sure did. Let's just hope it's enough to change things." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thanks to you, we have a chance now. A chance for freedom." As dawn broke over Xeraxis, the team gathered to watch the sunrise, a symbol of the new beginning they had fought for throughout the night. Their mission had been a success, but the true impact of their actions would only unfold in the days to come. Chapter 7. Confrontation. The morning after their mission, the village was alive with cautious optimism. The disruption they'd caused to Xaren's network had bought time. Precious time that Lyra's people had never dared hope for. Eli stood with Jonah, reviewing the latest intelligence while Lyra and Threx worked with the local engineers to bolster defenses. Jonah leaned on a console, his face showing signs of both weariness and satisfaction. "We did what we came here to do, Eli. The mining operations are in chaos, the satellites are down. But if Xaren catches wind of who's responsible, he'll come down on us hard." Eli nodded, his jaw tight. "We knew that was a risk. What matters now is what we do with this breathing room. We've given them a chance to organize, to protect themselves." Lyra approached, her expression resolute. "We've identified key locations to fortify. With your help, we can set up more advanced shields around our settlements." "Eli," Threx interjected, "we can also work on cloaking fields, the kind that the Yulari used before our war with Xaren. It won't last forever, but it could make us hard to find." Eli crossed his arms, deep in thought. "Okay, Jonah, coordinate with Lyra and Threx on those fortifications. I'll keep an eye on the perimeter and make sure the village is secure." As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Eli found himself drawn to a nearby ridge overlooking the village. Lyra followed him, sensing his need to think aloud. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, gazing at the alien horizon. "I never expected to be here doing this," Eli admitted quietly. "I've always been a scout, a pathfinder, never a leader." "You underestimate yourself," Lyra said, her voice gentle but firm. "You have rallied my people in ways we never thought possible. You have given us more than just a reprieve." Eli turned to her, his expression serious. "It's not just me. It's Jonah, Threx, and your people too. I just hope it's enough. Xaren doesn't strike me as the forgiving type." Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. "No, he is not. But he also relies on fear to maintain control. You have shown us that fear can be overcome." Before Eli could respond, a loud hum filled the air. The two turned toward the source, their eyes widening. A massive ship hovered on the horizon, its silhouette unmistakable. Xaren's flagship. Looks like he caught wind of us, Eli muttered. We need to act fast. The village erupted into controlled chaos as everyone scrambled to prepare. Shields activated, weapons, crude but effective, were distributed, and evacuation plans were put into place for the most vulnerable. Eli and Jonah gathered their crew. We can't take him head-on, Jonah said. Not with that ship, but we can outmaneuver him. Threx nodded. If we can lure him away from the village, perhaps into the nearby asteroid field, we could use the debris to our advantage. Eli thought quickly, formulating a plan. All right, Threx, you and Lyra stay here and coordinate the village's defenses. Jonah, you're with me. We'll take the Nebula Wing and try to draw him off. Lyra stepped forward, her hand brushing Eli's arm. Be careful. Xaren is not to be underestimated. Eli met her gaze, a brief moment of understanding passing between them. I will. Just keep everyone safe. As the Nebula Wing roared to life, Jonah took his place at the weapons console. You've got a plan, right, Captain? Something like that, Eli replied. Let's give Xaren a reason to chase us. The Nebula Wing sped toward the asteroid field, the flagship looming behind them like a predator. Eli expertly wove through the dense field of rocks and debris, using every bit of his experience as a pilot to stay ahead. Jonah fired small bursts, strategically collapsing clusters of asteroids to create temporary barriers. Xaren's ship followed, its immense power evident in the way it carved a path through the field. But the Nebula Wing's agility kept it just out of reach. Inside the cockpit, Jonah's voice cut through the tension. He's getting closer. We need another trick. Eli smirked. Remember that cloaking field Threx rigged up? Time to see if it actually works. Jonah grinned, flipping the switch. The Nebula Wing shimmered, then vanished from the flagship scanners. Xaren's forces hesitated, confused by the sudden disappearance. Eli seized the opportunity, doubling back and taking a hidden route out of the field. When they finally returned to the village, the flagship had drifted far from Xeraxis, unable to locate its target. Eli and Jonah landed to find Lyra and Threx waiting, relief evident on their faces. You made it, Lyra said, her voice filled with gratitude. Barely, Eli replied, disembarking. But Xaren's forces are thrown off for now. We've got a little more time. As the crew regrouped, the sense of accomplishment was tempered by the knowledge that their fight wasn't over. Xaren would be back, but with each small victory, they grew stronger. Chapter 8. A New Dawn. The quiet after Xaren's forces retreated was almost unsettling. For the first time in what felt like forever, the village wasn't on high alert. The crew of the Nebula Wing gathered around the central meeting point, exchanging weary smiles. The repairs to the ship were complete, and with Xaren's flagship temporarily out of the way, it was time to make a decision. Eli stood at the head of the group, arms crossed. All right, everyone. We've bought some time for Lyra's people. We've given them the tools and knowledge they need to keep Xaren's forces at bay. The question is, what now? Jonah leaned back against a support beam, arms crossed. If we head home, we've got to report what we've found. That might mean the start of more involvement from Earth in this region. Threx tilted his head, considering. More involvement means more risk for Lyra's people. Humans are unpredictable. What if Earth sees this world as a resource, just as Xaren does? Lyra, standing at the edge of the circle, spoke up. I trust Eli and his crew, but I do not know the intentions of the other humans. If more of your kind come here, it could draw more attention to us. Eli rubbed the back of his neck, clearly weighing the options. We could keep this under wraps. Return to Earth, but keep what we've seen here out of official reports. That way you stay hidden. But it also means you're on your own if Xaren comes back. Mika, who had joined the group, nodded. We can continue the fight. You've taught us how to defend ourselves. With your training and the upgrades to our technology, we can handle Xaren's forces. Jonah frowned. That's a lot of pressure to leave on them, though. It doesn't sit right just flying off and hoping for the best. Threx added, There may be a middle ground. We could quietly remain in contact. A subtle exchange of resources and information. That way, they're not isolated, but they're not overwhelmed by too much outside interference. Eli glanced at Lyra. Would that work for you? Discreet support from us? As needed. Lyra hesitated before nodding. It would allow us to continue our way of life while still knowing we have allies if things become dire again. Jonah grinned. Sounds like a plan. A quiet, secret alliance. Just the way I like it. With the decision made, the crew began preparing for their return trip. The mood was bittersweet. They had accomplished so much together, and leaving Zaraxis felt like leaving a part of themselves behind. Lyra and her people watched as the Nebula Wings engines warmed up, their faint glow casting long shadows across the alien terrain. Before boarding, Eli turned to Lyra. You've got my contact info. If Exarin shows his face again, don't hesitate to reach out. Lyra smiled softly. And if you find yourselves in trouble, you know where to find us. Jonah clapped Eli on the shoulder. Let's hit it, Captain. Time to head home. Eli paused a moment longer, looking at Lyra, then nodded. All right, let's go. As the Nebula Wing ascended, the crew looked out at the shrinking image of Zaraxis below. They'd been through so much on that alien world, met people who had become more than just allies, and proven that sometimes it wasn't about who had the biggest fleet or the strongest weapons. It was about understanding, collaboration, and the willingness to stand together when it mattered most. With a steady hand on the controls, Eli set the course for Earth. While the stars blurred into streaks of light in the viewports, he and his crew knew that the bonds they'd forged on Zaraxis wouldn't be left behind. The journey home was only the beginning of a new chapter for everyone involved.